Father's Day war between members of the British royal family belies a much wider feud with King Charles and Prince William at each other's throats. But Meghan Markle posted these bizarre new images, having seen this tribute from Princess Charlotte and the children to our future king, Prince William. They posted happy birthday and Father's Day to the best papa in the world. We love you very much. C, G, C and L. Very lovely personal message from Catherine and the children. But of course, Meghan saw that and immediately thought, I can do much better with my creepy version. My photoshopped image, which is going to show Harry looking really cool and laid back. And I know I'm going to pitch my new business as part of this too. As she wrote, they're so lucky to have you. We are all. Happy Father's Day to our one and only. At the same time, there was a sort of underlying message of he's coming home, as in the family is coming home, given Archie was wearing an England football jersey. Not the official one, though, and I'll come to that in just one moment. There's a reason behind it, but Long Sally, a.k.a. Sue Smith, said, for the love of God, another picture of the back of the heads of children that was obviously taken years ago due to the change in size. Does she not realise how crazy she looks? Well, she doesn't care, does she? Because there is merch to sell. And this time, it was Zara. Meghan decided to use Father's Day and Prince George, who is in the British line of succession, to merch Zara. But let's be honest, there was a serious dose of weirdness to the picture itself. And a rod revealing the front part of Archie's toe is on the sole of his foot. How is that possible? Patsy pointing out, I'm more concerned about the boy's right heel jutting out like that. Surely that's not normal because it's huge. Does he need special shoes made? And then Anna, this is the one. This is the one that I realised straight away. They even drew in some hair for Harry. And can you blame him? I guess you would ask. But look, the net is closing in. And we know that Meghan Markle knows she can't keep this up much longer, which is why she is planning this photo opportunity with ideally the King and Queen later next month in the United Kingdom. Because Milo Yiannopoulos is totally all over this now, writing, I spent a weekend on this and I am completely convinced, A, they've used multiple different children in photos, B, at least one pregnancy was via surrogate, making the child ineligible for the line of succession, C, she wore a moon bump or other fake pregnancy tummy. But when it comes to Father's Day, there's a lot to pick up on, isn't there? Because the mainstream media in the United Kingdom is absolutely hell-bent on using this emotional blackmail line to try and reunite Prince Harry and King Charles in some way. Yet there's absolutely no thought. Have you noticed this? Not one thought on Father's Day for Thomas Markle, Meghan's father, a very good man who in the past few months has lost his leg. It was up to Meghan's mole to point this out to the New York Post. What about Thomas Markle Sr.? Happy Father's Day to the man who gave Meghan Markle everything until she married Harry and started abusing Charles. And then, quite helpfully, Meghan's mole reminded us of what Meghan Markle posted herself to her dad. Happy Father's Day, Daddy. This is before she met Harry, of course. I'm still your buckaroo. And to this day, your hugs are still the very best in the whole wide world. Thanks for my work ethic, my love of Busby Berkeley films and club sandwiches, for teaching me the importance of handwritten thank you notes, and for giving me that signature Markle nose. I love you. XO Bean. So before we all just go totally mad for the idea that Harry just must introduce his grandchildren to the King of England, what about Thomas Markle, who is down the road in the USA? Watch. If you value the whole truth and nothing but the truth on these royal stories, make sure you subscribe to Outspoken right now. It allows me to work outside of the MSM and the Royal Rota.
And right now we're in Beverly Hills, and we're going to pass the Beverly Hilton Hotel, where I'll be on Sunday meeting the other Northwestern.
We need more men like that. Just as we need more men like my father, who championed my 11-year-old self to stand up for what is right. Just as we need more men like my father, who championed my 11-year-old self to stand up for what is right.
As Queen Esther put it, it's remarkable how every royal journalist seems determined to write the same Harry and Charles reconciliation story on an endless loop. Every article is about healing, forgiveness, family reunions, olive branches, and restoring ties with the royal family. But where are those headlines about Thomas Markle? Meghan spent years telling the world what a wonderful father he was. She praised his sacrifices, credited him for her opportunities, and held him up as an example of parental devotion. Then the moment he became inconvenient, he was erased from the narrative. Thomas is elderly, has suffered serious health setbacks, and has spent years publicly expressing the hope that he might one day hear from his daughter again. Yet the media's obsession with reconciliation never seems to extend in his direction. If Harry and Meghan truly believe family relationships are worth repairing, perhaps they could start with the father Meghan once couldn't stop praising instead of continually demanding access to everyone else's family. The endless lectures about compassion, forgiveness, and reconciliation would carry a lot more weight if they were practiced at home first. Funny how family is everything only seems to matter when the family happens to be royal. And there is proof of that, by the way, because Althorpe, that is the resting place of Princess Diana, closed on July the 10th and 11th. It seems almost inevitable now that Meghan and Harry will also do some type of stunt at Diana's resting place, with, according to Taz, revealing if the kids do come, then this is the real reason why they want footage and photos of their children at Althorpe and at Diana's grave. Harry will play the introducing them to their grandmother card, but it will be content for the Diana documentary they are working on. So P. Dinah Royal YouTube sensation is with me now, and there's a huge amount to pick up on over the weekend, P. Dinah. But firstly, can we just talk about how transparent Meghan was? Did you notice she waited, P. Dinah, until Catherine had posted her tribute to William on what was also his birthday, of course, and at the same time thought, oh, I know, it's a formal photo of William, so I'm going to do something really informal to try and make him look stupid in some way, like him look rigid, while Harry looks like a man of the people. But at the same time, P. Dinah, the photo, once again, totally filled with flaws.
Yeah. You know, it's really sad because it doesn't become about the father. It doesn't become about your children. Meghan uses her loved ones, supposed loved ones, to play games and to manipulate and to try to one-up someone. And she doesn't have these authentic things about her that would make her somewhat likable, but she uses it to really take a dig at her supposed enemies. And it's almost like, why can't you just be someone that is about the right thing? Why does everything you do have to be a manipulation? It has to be a strategy, some kind of false telling of, whatever it is that you're thinking in your head to one up somebody. It just becomes sad at this point that you don't have your children, or you're not using your children in a way that is in a loving way. You're using them to manipulate and to do really devious things that are just not necessary. It just shows what a not nice person Meghan really truly is at the heart of it. It's sickening. It's disgusting. I just couldn't imagine using my children like this. I don't understand this woman. She's got some very devious and deceptive ways about her that should be very concerning, especially when you involve your children into that whole deception. It's wrong.
And especially, P. Dinah, now that we know Althorpe is clearly going to be one of the locations used for this introductory visit. And it's so sad that we don't trust Harry not to use his mother's resting place now for terrible PR stunts. But you can understand that that is very much how William and Catherine feel.
Yeah, and I think this is why they are so cautious of Meghan, because she will do things that are just completely crazy. And I mean, imagine going to use the grave site of, your mother-in-law to make money, to have your children be there for some photo op, to sell what it is that you're doing. I mean, William, I'm sure, is beside himself. I mean, how do you navigate this on a public stage if you're someone like William, trying to do the right thing, but then you have this family member along with your brother who are doing everything they can to just take a dig and to do things that you don't like, that you don't approve of. I mean, but yet he has to still publicly go out there and do his work and navigate all of this behind the scenes. I can imagine it is a lot for him to deal with. Unnecessary and completely just off the charts crazy. Dan, I feel for William and Catherine and all that they have to go through.
But P. Dinah, things have broken down within the British royal family because it's like there's civil war upon civil war. Tom Sykes has described it over the weekend as chaos in the King's Court. My former newspaper, The Sun, when I was there, we came up with the legendary front page Megxit to accompany my scoop about Harry and Meghan quitting. But they have now, P. Dinah, come up with a reversal front page, Meg's in. And that is because of the fact that Charles is going to be offering Harry and Meghan this use of a palace during their return this summer. And so it was left to Charlotte Griffiths in the Mail on Sunday over the weekend. Now, Charlotte Griffiths is an interesting one, given her relationship with Prince Harry that emerged recently. But it was left to Charlotte to reveal that William and Charles are not in a good place, with royal insiders telling her that the King's olive branch to Harry has led to froideur with William and Kate, and William had this very extreme reaction to chat about his brother. So let me take you through this, P. Dinah. Charlotte Griffiths reports the prospect of Charles reconciling with his younger son may have had the unfortunate side effect of souring his relationship with his elder, I can reveal. Royal insiders this weekend claimed that the King's willingness to extend an olive branch to Harry has led to an increase in long simmering tensions with William, who is in no mood to forgive his brother. The King's relationship with William is not in a good place, one well-connected source told me. They are at a very low ebb. Rumours of tension between the King and William have been fueled by what some insiders claimed was a froideur during Trooping the Colour last weekend. The MOS understands that just a few hours before the event marking the King's official birthday, William learned that Meghan would be coming to the UK with Harry. The Prince of Wales is said to believe his father is making a misjudgment in making efforts to rebuild a relationship with Harry, sources say. In contrast, William shows no signs of wanting to forgive his brother for the damaging claims he made in his memoir Spare and in a bombshell Oprah Winfrey interview in which he accused an unnamed royal of racism. William has allegedly barred any mention of his brother in his presence, with insiders saying he remains unwilling to even contemplate a reconciliation. The siblings are believed to have not spoken to each other since the late Queen's funeral in 2022. But this is where things get very interesting. Some sources said that Princess Catherine, who usually maintains a flawless smile at high-profile events, appeared visibly tense during last Saturday's pageantry. Reports noted that her usual warmth and composure faltered, and she seemed reluctant to smile and wave for the cameras from her horse-drawn carriage. At the time, and certainly this is what I believe it was about, this was put down to her having to face a barrage of jeers from anti-monarchy protesters. But sources claim that was not the full story. One insider said Queen Camilla, King Charles, and the Princess of Wales were not outwardly warm together that day, and the reason was not just the protesters. Relations were decidedly frosty backstage. Another source said so much of what they do is performative, but there was little performance on display that day. So, P. Dinah, this is interesting reporting, coming from Charlotte Griffiths, no less, the woman who Harry used to call G-string. But at the very least, P. Dinah, I think there is an acknowledgement that things are not great between William and Charles over this decision. Now, we'll come to the fact that William's own court seems to be very divided on the whole issue of whether Harry should be allowed to come whatsoever, about whether Harry should be offered a palace. But there is now multiple sourcing, P. Dinah, suggesting that William and Catherine very unimpressed by King Charles. I guess, how would you describe it? A softness towards Harry and Meghan that they don't agree with, and that, let me be honest with you, I don't agree with, and I don't think much of the British public agree with.
Yeah, William knows it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a big mistake. It is going to come back some kind of way to reflect really badly, I think, upon the monarchy, because that's what Meghan does. She manipulates, and Harry, I believe, is being manipulated, and everything that they do is never going to be good for the monarchy. So how can you even trust bringing them back right now? There's no apology. I mean, I could almost see if they were wanting to apologize or, kind of say, okay, we're sorry for what has happened. But they're coming back having not apologized. They're coming back just as if nothing ever happened. You cannot forget what these people have done. And this is just going to be more manipulation, more things that Meghan can use later to make money off of, because we know their finances are in the gutter right now. So this is just kind of like a reboost for Meghan, especially to grab more content, more things that she can lie about to take back and monetize. It is a big mistake. And I don't understand why the king is just being so soft. We cannot forget what Meghan, I believe her hand was in it, what happened with that book Endgame. She said some really nasty things about the king. And now all of a sudden you're just going to forget about it. I mean, it's surprising that people who are doing the right thing, they are upstanding in their work, they are loved by the people, but yet Catherine and William, but anything that they want around Meghan and Harry gets overlooked as if it's not important. You should be giving Catherine and William what they want, because they're the ones that are doing what they should be doing in a very upstanding way. Why are these two losers from America coming over and they're being handed opportunity to even be in the presence of the king? Hey, let's do a FaceTime call. Don't put them on British soil with you in the room.
Exactly.
That's a big mistake.
Or, as I've said right from the start, do not allow them to use this for publicity reasons. This is how you come in. We'll pick you up at the airport. You come in via private jet, you leave. No publicity, no pictures, but they don't want that. But this is where, P. Dinah, it's interesting, because Tom Sykes is reporting this split chaos at the King's Court. He calls it why they can't get its story straight on Harry and Meghan. And he says there is a clear divide within King Charles's camp, P. Dinah. It's led by the Hawks, which is Sir Clive Alderton, the King's private secretary, who believes that Harry's behaviour is unforgivable and that the monarchy will be harmed if Harry and Meghan are replatformed by the King. William sides with them. They are described by Harry as the men in grey suits. Then there are the Doves, led by former diplomat Theo Rycroft, Alderton's deputy, who is expected to succeed him in the fullness of time. They are aligned with the King's wishes, according to Tom Sykes, to reconcile with Harry and let bygones be bygones in service of the Victorian myth of the model family. The return of Harry and Meghan with their children in July is shaping up to be a disaster for both sides unless they can find some common ground on which to coalesce. This particular attempt to rewrite history and suggest that Charles was last year somehow tricked into having tea with his own child and is now being tricked again into giving him a house is part of a problem that has become deeply unconvincing. If you think someone is emotionally blackmailing you, because this is the line that was used in the Daily Mail's piece over the weekend, P. Dinah, you don't tend to give in. We may think that Harry is emotionally blackmailing Charles. William may think it. Sir Clive may think it. But Charles's actions, by which I mean giving his son's family the greatest privilege of royal lodgings when they are in the UK for their visit, show that he thinks nothing of the kind. The fact that his own office is effectively briefing against him to the Mail, saying he is weak, being manipulated and the subject of emotional blackmail, is a graphic sign of the massive fissure, the failure to coherently deal with the Harry issue and what it is causing at the heart of monarchy. There genuinely is a faction within the King's Court that does not want this reunion to happen, does not think it serves the institution, and is actively trying to reshape the narrative against it. The emotional blackmail briefing to the Mail is evidence of that faction at work. But in the end, the King's will is done, and he is handing over a residence and thereby facilitating security. Harry has backed himself into a corner with his wild and public statements about his security, so he cannot bring Meghan and the children to Britain without a massive loss of face, without a royal palace to stay in. The entire visit is prededicated on the King's active cooperation, so it's nonsense to claim at the same time that he is somehow against it. Tom Sykes adds, of course, Charles is going to meet them. There will almost certainly be a photograph of the King with Archie and Lilibet, and that photograph will be the thing the Sussexes wanted all along, because it places them back inside the frame of royalty, back inside the institution they left, back inside the one thing that gives their personal brand any remaining commercial value. One other point that people keep missing when they say it's all just Sussex spin is that this is not a story about one trip in July. It is establishing the pattern for the rest of the King's reign. If Harry is given a royal residence this summer, what happens in September when Wellchild comes around and he is back in Britain again? Does he stay in the same place? Does he leave his toothbrush there? Is it, his place? What about the Invictus Games? In Birmingham next year, the soil is being prepared, the seeds have been planted, and the July trip is the first shoot. The infrastructure for regular Sussex visits to Britain is being put in place, and once it exists, it will be very difficult for a future King, William V, to dismantle. The Sussexes went to California, monetized their position, made millions, launched a lifestyle brand, and has still been invited back to stay in a royal palace. Meghan has made it clear that the clothes she wears will be available for purchase through affiliate links on her website. The Sussex integration of commerce with the royal institution is happening in plain sight, and the King appears unwilling to make the hard calls that are necessary to prevent it. The people around William understand how bad that is. Some people around Charles understand it too, which is why the briefings are so contradictory, and the Hawks are trying to present the visit as something the King has been pressured into. The other faction is prepared to accept the political damage.
Yeah, I think that last point there about being pressured into this, I think considering the King's health, I can only imagine that he has been inundated with all these calls or attempts to talk with him from Harry's side, his camp. And it's just, at the end of the day, the King is probably like, okay, he's just giving into it and trying to just maintain peace, because we know that's what the King does. He tries to maintain this peace, and he's aligned himself in many ways that are not popular. And this is just another example of that. And I think he's just going to do it because he's exhausted, he's tired. But what we have to look at is Camilla. Camilla is not wanting this. And I think there are going to be limits that she's going to put on the King, considering that this is going to happen, that we can rest assured that Camilla is going to make sure that things are, done in a way that are not too overstepping, is what I'm hoping, because she doesn't like this whole thing with, Meghan and Harry coming back. But I think at the end of the day, the King is just exhausted, Dan, and just wants to make peace, have peace, considering his health.
Yeah, I think you're right. We always considered and hoped, didn't we, that Queen Camilla was going to be the backstop to them worming their way back in. Like, certainly last year she was behind this meeting being very short, for example, with the King, making sure that the King had to be back at Sandringham. But I don't know, I feel like she's lost this battle a little bit. But what is interesting to me is seeing the King's Court trying to play both sides of this argument. And I do think that is going to be a difficult one to keep playing, P. Dinah, because at the end of the day, once Harry, Meghan and the children are here, if they are staying at a royal palace, we're going to know about it. So
Right.
that wouldn't happen without Charles's approval. So I would argue it's much better to try and own it now, be honest about what's going on, rather than trying to say, oh no, Harry's bullying the king into something he doesn't want to do.
Yeah, they better get aligned on what their narrative is, because Meghan will come in and she will manipulate this. Absolutely. She'll use it to her advantage when there's, not an alignment, from what's being said, and there's a divide in the, household. So you got to be very careful, because Meghan is not afraid to just, look like she is doing things that others wouldn't do. She just makes herself come off so low class. And, you got to be cautious of people that are like that, because they will bring you down too. So this has to be very strategic, and there has to be an alignment from the king's people, so that this does not get manipulated in a way to really harm the monarchy, because that's what I believe Meghan will do. Absolutely. You can't trust her.
Well, indeed, to be honest, P. Dinah, she had already started. This is the shocking thing. Meghan Markle is already cashing in on this royal visit. I know, it's so gross. And this should be such a warning to the British royal family. I'm going to tell you exactly how, and also how Catherine is fighting back. But Catherine is fighting back in the oh-so-classy, oh-so-subtle way that she does. But there is something very pointed. So I'm going to get into both of those major stories with P. Dinah. As the Royal Uncancelled After Show continues, you can come and join us over on Substack. The address to do so, www.outspoken.live. Paid monthly and annual subscribers get first access to the Royal Uncancelled After Show with no advertising whatsoever.